From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, 23 days before the presidential elections, Kaduna State Governor Naira El-Rufai alleges sabotage against the APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu from within the presidency. Presidency reacts to Governor El-Rufai's allegations, says it is not aware of anyone working against the APC flag bearer within the presidency. River State Governor Wike says his supporters already know his preferred presidential candidate, insists he never promised to make the announcement public.
And on business news tonight, African Energy Chamber unveils plans to explore upstream and other opportunities in Nigeria.
Call it a bombshell, and you may not be wrong. The governor of Kaduna State is alleging that there are elements in the presidency working against the victory of the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC. Governor Naira El-Rufai, who was a guest on our program, Sunrise Daily, earlier today, said the implementation of some of the policies by the federal government is coming at a wrong time.
Is there a division between those around the president and those within your party right now, you know, which is affecting your party's presidential campaign council?
I believe there is. I believe that there are elements in the villa that want us to lose the elections because they didn't get their way. They had their candidate. Their candidate didn't win the primaries. And I think they are still trying to get us to lose the elections. And they are hiding behind the president's desire to do what he thinks is right. I'll give two examples. This petroleum subsidy, okay, which is costing the country trillions of naira, was something that we all agreed will be removed. In fact, I had a discussion with the president and showed him why it had to go, because how can you have a capital budget of 200 billion for federal roads and then spend 2 trillion on subsidy? This was a conversation I had with the president in 2021 when the subsidy thing started rising. He was convinced. We left. It changed. Everyone in the government agreed. It changed, okay? Secondly, the second example I will give is this currency redesign. You have to understand the president. People are blaming the governor of the central bank for currency redesign. No. You have to go back and look at the president's first outing as president. He did this. Buhari Idiagbon regime changed our currency and did it in secrecy with a view to catching those that are stashing away illicit funds. It's a very good intention, very clean intention. The president's heart is white, okay? But doing it at this time, within the time allotted, just doesn't make any political, economic or sense. And for such a program to work, okay, we have to be involved as governors, as subnationals. Because, look, in my state, there are 2 local governments without banks. In Borno State, out of 27 local governments, only 2 have banks. In Yobe State, out of 17 local governments, only 2 have banks. So how do you expect farmers in every part? And remember, Borno State is 4 times the size of the 5 southeast states. So how do you expect everyone to change his currency within the time limit? Look, there are some things
So knowing the example and given the example that you've given, what then are the chances of your candidate in the presidential elections?
Look, the people of Nigeria should understand that these are not the policies of the APC, they are not the policies of our candidate, they are the policies of fifth columnists that want to bring us down. They want to bring this country down.
In a swift reaction, the federal government promptly responded to the allegations from the Kaduna State governor. The Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who reacted while addressing State House correspondents after the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting, says the presidency is not aware of anyone working against the success of the APC flag bearer. According to him, the president is only focused on ensuring a free, fair and credible election.
One thing I can assure you is that no matter who, this administration is focused and determined to ensure a free and fair election. And I think this administration and those that matter now, who are the most important person in this administration to me is Mr. President. And I think he has shown by words and by deed that is committed to a free, fair and credible election. And fair, free and credible election actually means not favoring anybody or disadvantaging anybody. And everywhere he goes, he makes that very clear. Even as recently as Friday, when he was in Daura, he said the same thing. So if there's anybody who's working against any candidate, we don't know officially.
Well, more reactions trailing the statement by the Kaduna State governor, this time from the Presidential Campaign Council, PCC, of the APC. As far as the council is concerned, the most important support Senator Tinubu needs from the presidency is that of President Muhammadu Buhari, who has already thrown his weight behind his candidature. Fielding questions from journalists at a press conference in Abuja, the Director of Strategic Communications of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Dele Alake, says Senator Tinubu remains unbeatable in the presidential elections in spite of whatever conspiracies are against him.
You cannot have 100% of all the operatives in an organization seeing issues exactly the same way. However, it is the preponderance of views that matter, the mainstream. Now, in terms of the presidency, who is the power base? The commander-in-chief. He holds all the aces. So we do not expect that all his staff would actually see eye to eye with him, but they are still there. Because again, you also need perspectives from various angles. That is why we even say, our own principal, our presidential candidate, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, I have always said it often, and I repeat it. One of his strengths is to accommodate dissenting views within his own milieu. And I have a personal experience of this, and I continue to have it. We sit down when we were strategizing and planning policies and all that. We argue a great deal. And it's one leader, in my experience, that has a very large heart, whose horizon is so wide, who is so accommodating of opposing views, with a view to reaching a logical conclusion from which policies, germane policies, come out.
Still talking politics, the People's Democratic Party's presidential candidate, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, is asking the Central Bank of Nigeria not to consider postponing the new Naira regime after the expiration of the February 10 deadline. In a statement issued by his campaign organization, Mr. Abubakar says some people whom he described as the vote riggers are seeking to push the CBN to extend till after the election in order to achieve their aims. He, however, urged the Apex Bank to immediately review the measures it has put in place for the circulation of the new Naira notes to alleviate the hardship currently facing Nigerians, especially rural dwellers. According to him, the anti-democratic elements who are pretending to be Democrats are the ones ganging up against the CBN because of the currency redesign and the cashless regime it seeks to enthrone. They have been scheming and lobbying day and night to frustrate the policy. Now, their new measure is to lobby for a second postponement of the deadline for the change of currency. I urge the CBN and the government to ignore their antics. The CBN should not succumb to the current pressure. The PDP flag bearer adds that this is one policy that will benefit the country in the long term. Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, has taken his campaign to Sokoto State. Mr. Obi arrived at the Sultan Abubakar International Airport in company of his running mate, Dati Baba Ahmed, the national chairman of the party, and party chieftains, Professor Patu Tomi, Nenadi Usman, Aisha Yusufu, and Valentine Ozigbo. His first stop was the palace of the Sultan of Sokoto, His Eminence Saad Abubakar III. Speaking there, Mr. Obi promised to fix the endemic poverty in the country by engaging the huge number of unemployed youths in the country.
At about 10 minutes past 11, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and his associates touched down at the Sultan Abubakar III International Airport, Sokoto, for the party's presidential campaign in the seat of the Caliphate. He heads straight to the palace of the Sultan of Sokoto to pay homage to the spiritual leader of northern Nigeria. The Sultan identifies lack of effective leadership as the problem of Nigeria.
And I assure you, we are apolitical. We don't have any political party that we are leaning to. We are saying that this one is better than the other. It's only the Almighty Allah who knows who is better than any other person. And as Muslims, we know what we always say, what we always do. We always say power belongs to Almighty Allah. He gives it to whom He wants at the time He wants.
The presidential campaign then moves to the Shehu Kangiwa Stadium, venue of the rally, where party supporters gathered to receive them. Mr. Peter Obi, who addressed newsmen after the rally, is optimistic that the challenges of the country are surmountable with the right leadership.
We will ensure that we will secure the country. We will ensure that we will start putting our youth out of poverty. Start building a united country where nobody will say he's from the east or west, but one nation called Nigeria. And that's our commitment.
The national chairman of the party admonishes Nigerians not to allow the major political parties distract them from the issues bedeviling the country.
I know that they are going to come to entice them with money, as they have always done. My admonition to them is that it is time for the people to take their destiny in their hands. And therefore, I urge the people to remain solidly with Labour Party, irrespective of what may be the inducement to them.
The party is planning to intensify its presidential campaign in the days ahead. Delia Moyeni, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, River State Governor Wike says his supporters already know his preferred presidential candidate, insists he never promised to make the announcement public. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. 23 days before the presidential elections, Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai alleges sabotage against the APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu from within the presidency. Presidency reacts to Governor El-Rufai's allegation, says it is not aware of anyone working against the APC flag bearer within the presidency. PDP presidential candidate Atiku asked central bank not to succumb to pressure from those he describes as anti-democratic elements to extend the deadline for the withdrawal of old Naira notes from circulation. And United States Federal Bureau of Investigation searches President Joe Biden's Delaware home in the latest attempt to track down classified documents. And if you were one of those waiting for Governor Wike to announce his choice of presidential candidates, that announcement may not be coming publicly, as Governor Wike says he has communicated his choice of candidates for the presidential election to his supporters in the state. According to him, at no time did he promise to announce his preferred candidate on camera. The governor was speaking during the campaign by the state chapter of the PDP in Port Harcourt.
Port Harcourt City is the 11th local government area to be visited as the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State, led by Governor Nyesom Wike, intensify its campaigns ahead of the February and March elections. After preliminary activities at the primary school Elekahia, the governorship candidate takes to the stage and assures the supporters of his commitment to further develop the state capital.
If there is anything remaining, any area that we have not touched, that is where we come in. That is where this team you're seeing today comes in. C-O-N-G-S-S-R-S P-O-S Africa.
On his part, Governor Wike asks his supporters to assert their authority at the polls against those he describes as betrayers of the state.
PDP! Power to the people!
He also refused accusation that his administration is restricting the opposition parties from campaigning.
There is a law which says if you want to use public facility, government facility, built by government, if you want to use a school, if you want to use our stadium, you pay certain amount of money so that if you destroy anything, government will be in a position to use that money and rebuild whatever you have destroyed.
On the much anticipated endorsement of a preferred presidential candidate, the governor says the directive has been issued in private to his supporters, explaining that he never promised a public announcement.
I never told anybody one day I will bring camera and announce to you this is who will go. I said I will tell Rivers people the candidate they will support. Not so? Not so. I did not tell you the method of saying it. I did not tell you I will bring live coverage and say it. But Rivers people know, is it not correct? Yes, sir.
Earlier, the PDP entourage received a royal blessing from the king of the area, Eze Uchechukwu Isaiah Eluku.
Staying with political campaigns, the governorship candidate of the African Democratic Congress, ADC in Ogun State, Mr. Olubiyi Otegbeye, has vowed to put the state on the path of progress and development if voted into office. He disclosed this while addressing party supporters at the flag-off of his campaign at the Ake Palace ground in Abeokuta, the state capital.
A huge crowd from all 20 local government areas of Ogun State converged at the Ake's Palace ground in Abeokuta for the flag-off of the ADC governorship campaign rally. And former Governor Ibikule Amosu is present alongside party stalwarts to support Olubiyi Otegbeye and his running mate Olatunde Awonuga. The Director General of the Olubi Otegbeye campaign organization insists that Otegbeye is the best man for the job.
Have the best alternative to the governance of Ogun State, and that is Barrister B.E. Otegbeye. I want to enjoin you all. Please, your PVC is very, very important.
Former Ogun State Governor Senator Ibikule Amosu reminds the crowd why he's supporting the APC presidential candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu, while calling for the people to vote for the ADC governorship candidate to set the state back on the path of development.
I said where we found ourselves as a nation today, I believe strongly that the presidency should come to the south. And that is why I am supporting Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Based on equity, justice, fairness, you can continue like that. Ogun State will almost be 50 years now. Since the creation of this Ogun State, nobody from Ogun West has been governor. So Yewa have good people. They have good children that can do it. He's a tested lawyer. He's a good person, an insurer. Indeed, it is trusted and tested. The second reason, and that is very important, and that Ogun State must not derail.
After receiving the party flag to signal the ADC campaign flag off on stage, Olubi Otegbeye speaks about his mission.
All the sweat and the labor of the founding fathers of these states, since the commencement of Ogun State in 1976, have been destroyed by the present administration. Rather than progressing, the state is regressing. And we are here to fix all the rots.
Before proceeding to the rally ground, the ADC governorship candidate, the former Ogun State Governor Ibikule Amosu, and top members of the ADC campaign train paid homage at the paramount ruler of Egba Kingdom, the Alake of Egba land, Oba Adedotun Gbadebo, for prayers.
Party in Abia State, Dr. Alex Oti has taken his campaign to communities in Ukwano local government area of Abia. Mr. Oti has promised the people that if elected as governor, his administration will construct functional light rail systems that will connect all 17 local government areas in the state for easy movement of goods and agricultural products.
The campaign train of the Labour Party governorship candidate in Abia State, Dr. Alex Oti, is on the move yet again, this time in Ikwano local government area of Abia State, where he met stakeholders in the area, as well as party supporters, to seek their support in the March governorship election. Addressing the crowd, Dr. Oti notes that he has started talking with Chinese investors on the light rail project as documented in his manifesto. Having all the local governments connected by rail is one of the first things he will do if elected.
The easiest, the low-hanging fruit is having every local government and every community connected by road, and that's not rocket science.
He also expresses regret over the deplorable state of roads, health facilities, infrastructure, and education in Abia State.
Maybe it may take a little bit of time, but it's possible and it's not too difficult to do. It's been done elsewhere. And once you do that, you will find that movement will be very easy. To move from Okwa West to Atiku may take you less than an hour 30 minutes. Today is a day's journey. To move to Omunnochi from Okwa East may take you just a few minutes. Today it will take you more than half a day. So that's the plan. It's already documented in our manifesto, and we'll do it. Thanks, no doubt.
In their separate remarks, the Labour Party House of Representative candidates Sir Obi Agwocha and Mr. Chiedu Friday, a community leader, expressed confidence that Dr. Oti will deliver on the job.
When you look at the totality of what Dr. Alex Oti is to bring to bear, one, he's going to bring about a reduction in unemployment, meaning there will be massive job creation. He's promised to industrialize the state, one industry per local government. In this wise, we'll have 17 local governments.
They have ruined us from promise and fail. But now we have seen Messiah that God has sent from Alex Oti, Labour Party. And he must do it. And when he promised, he will do it. We trust in him. You have started him before. He won 2015, but they collected from him. But now, no rigging.
The campaign team of Dr. Alex Oti says their confidence of winning remains 100%.
Away from the campaigns, a preliminary report on youth candidacy in the forthcoming general election released by Yaga Africa reveals a decline in youth candidacy from 34% in the 2019 general elections to 28% for 2023. The report, titled Youth Candidacy in the 2023 Elections in Nigeria, was presented by the Executive Director of Yaga Africa, Mr. Samson Itodo, at a conference many youth candidates attended in Abuja. The report indicates factors responsible for the decline, including the excessive cost of nomination forms and highly commercialized party primaries.
One of the things that we found in this election cycle is that the level of youth candidacy declined in 2023 compared to 2019. And what was the decline? In 2019, the level of youth candidacy, as you can see from the slide, was 34%. And what we mean is the percentage of candidates between 18 and 35 who are on the ballot. In 2019, it was 34%, but in 2023, it came down to 28.6%. And there are reasons that account for this reduction, and we highlighted some of them in the report. It is important that we underscore that securing the nomination of your party was not a tea party for you. We know that some of you went through harrowing experiences, and so it's not easy to have you here today.
Still ahead on the news at 10, African Energy Chamber unveils plans to explore upstream and other opportunities in Nigeria and other African oil and gas producing countries this year. That's on Business News. In a moment, do stay with us.
They walk out with plenty money, Careful, make you dial the number 894. Make you know the wait 894. No need to start for line 894. It is safe and secure 894 for me, 894 for you, 894. There's a number that could change your whole world. 894. It no matter if you don't get data. 894. Just pick your phone and dial the number 894 for me, 894 for you, 894 for Niger.
Dial star 894 hash to get started. Powered by First Bank.
Welcome back, and we're off to Abuja for more stories. Linda Kibwe is standing by. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Millicent. The Supreme Court has nullified the nomination of Senator Emmanuel Bwacha as the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress in Taraba State. The leaving judgment, a 5-member panel led by Justice Adamu Jauro, affirmed the verdict of the Federal High Court Jalingo, which held that the APC did not conduct a valid governorship primary election in the state, which also required the party to conduct a fresh primary election within 14 days. Meanwhile, the Apex Court has declared as authentic the candidates that emerged from the primaries conducted by the Governor Godwin Obaseki faction of the People's Democratic Party in Edo State, and fixed February 6th for judgment in the legal dispute over the APC seats for Yobe North.
It's a busy day at the Supreme Court with quite a number of political cases set for consideration by the justices. The courtroom is full with lawyers and supporters, reflecting the import of the cases set for determination. One of such cases is the People's Democratic Party leadership in Edo State. The 5-man panel led by Justice Sentus Nweze declared the candidates from the faction loyal to Governor Godwin Obaseki as the authentic candidates of the PDP in Edo State for the National and State House of Assembly elections.
I have nothing to add than to say I'm excited. At least it has put to rest the question of who authentic candidates of the Benin Senatorial, House of Rep and State House of Assembly are.
We have waited for this judgment and we have agreed that after the judgment, the umbrella will be bigger. So this judgment is for all of us.
Back in the courtroom, the panel of justices delivers judgment in the suit to determine the candidacy of Senator Emmanuel Boacha as the Taraba State governorship candidate for the All Progressives Congress, APC. The 5-man panel led by Justice Adamu Jauro nullified the nomination of Senator Boacha and upheld the judgment of the trial court, which had ordered a fresh primary in 14 days. The justices held that the APC did not hold a valid party primary in Taraba State, and according to the plaintiff, who briefs journalists outside the court, they are considering conducting a fresh primary.
Then we'll contact our party at the National Secretariat. I'm sure they'll also have a look at what has happened and they'll take a stand as to whether we'll do another primaries or would go ahead to support our few candidates that are already there.
The Apex Court also heard arguments on the suit to determine the APC candidate for Yobe North Senatorial District, the seat currently occupied by the President of the Senate, Mr. Ahmed Lawan. The APC and Mr. Lawan are arguing that the party primary held on May 28, 2022, which produced Mr. Bashir Machina, was in breach of the Electoral Act. However, Mr. Machina wants the court to dismiss the appeal for lacking merit, insisting that Mr. Lawan did not challenge his emergence at the lower courts. The court subsequently adjourned the case to February 6 for judgment.
In other stories, President Muhammadu Buhari is targeting 100 trillion naira in asset growth for the country in 10 years. The president indicated this today when he officially launched the Ministry of Finance Incorporated MOFI, which was originally set in 1959 through an act of parliament as a custodian of the federal government's investment in various government-linked companies and government-owned enterprises. Inaugurating the Governing Council, Board of Directors and an executive management team of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated at the council chamber, President Buhari tasked the new council and the board to raise the value of the MOFI's portfolio from the current 18 trillion naira to 100 trillion naira by 2033. Our State House correspondent Gloria Umezuki reports.
For the first time this year, President Muhammadu Buhari presides over the Federal Executive Council meeting. Again, it's not a hybrid meeting as all ministers appear in person at the chamber. President Buhari begins with the official launch of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, MOFI, an entity conceptualized in 1959 but resuscitated 64 years after by the current administration as part of its change mantra. With less than 4 months to go, President Buhari is hoping to optimize returns on existing investments.
Today, I am tasking the new Ministry of Finance Incorporated to A, grow its assets under management from the current value of 18 trillion naira to at least 100 trillion naira in the next 10 years. B, partner with government with a view to using government-owned investments and assets to support the government in delivering on its social and economic obligations.
The finance minister, who is the vice chairman of the council, currently chaired by the president, underlines the moribund state of some of the nation's assets.
For our active investments, we must put in place the appropriate corporate governance structures, institutional framework, legislative instruments, policies, capital, and enabling environment and other support to enable investments to deliver the most superior risk-adjusted returns.
The council is also not oblivious to issues of potential overlapping of tasks with agencies like the BPP, saddled with similar functions as the MOFI.
As a former minister, I know that there are those potential conflicts. I think what we'll do is we will try and work together with all those agencies.
The process of restructuring MOFI to oversee non-performing assets of the federal government running into trillions of naira literally began months ago, but now the president has directed the finance minister to begin the other process of amending the MOFI Act 1959 in order to reposition MOFI as a trusted custodian of government's investments. From the presidential villa, Gloria Omezuke, Channels Television News.
The Registrar of the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board, JAMB, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, has suspended 4 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination Registration agents for alleged extortion. The suspension was announced during the JAMB Registrar's inspection visits to select computer-based test centers in Lagos State. Mr. Oloyede expressed his disappointment at the agents for allegedly collecting more than the stipulated amount from candidates, even after the commission had paid them commission for their services.
There are few people who are not behaving, or institutions. You have seen what we have now been able, at least cumulatively now, we have Remitter, we have e-Transact, we have digital partners, and which the one? Parkway. You are also the thing. And we are going to deal with them. We suspend them, and because we pay them commission for it, they ought not to have cut corners. And you can see even the most embarrassing discovery we got today of a bank that is affiliating with Remitter to extort candidates for up to 3,000. Even those who are doing 99 kobo, we are suspending them. Not to talk of a bank with your logo on the script, extorting candidates up to 3,000 naira. And you are not courageous enough to give the receipt. You gave the candidate receipt of 5,700 and collected 8,700 from them. You see, when we say suspension gives room for investigation. The right thing to do is to ban the center, but we won't do that. We suspend them, let them come with their excuses, and we look at their excuses, and if they are not genuine, we ban them from having anything to do with our own system.
And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Linda. There's some more stories now. The non-availability of sufficient newly designed Naira notes is a very thorny issue for Nigerians. And in Lagos, the country's commercial capital, it remains a concern to many who are yet to access the new notes. This is after the CBN Monetary Policy's decision for the old notes, which ceases to be legal tender from the 10th of February. Our correspondent Olumide Macaulay reports that the citizens are feeling the pressure as they strive to withdraw money from banks and ATMs.
Ojodu, a suburb in the heart of Lagos mainland, and the bank ATMs today are besieged by people out to get the latest scarce commodity in Nigeria.
My money that people ask me to put inside bank, I cannot now collect the money. It's not everybody. I jumped up yesterday and I told the woman, give me a account and let me transfer the 200 from, because I don't have cash to give anybody. I don't have a dime because I put everything. I don't have the money instead of losing anyone at home if they change the money. Now I put all the money inside bank. I cannot see any money to collect. How can I now go to POS? They'll be telling me POS 1,000 is 200. How are we going to survive?
Her grievance is echoed by others who find the situation equally frustrating.
I received a call 3 days ago from my village. They said they cannot buy, they cannot actually eat because the old Naira notes have been rejected by market women.
In Ikeja local government area, getting the newly designed Naira notes is like finding a needle in a haystack. And even though the Central Bank of Nigeria has extended the deadline to February the 10th, that, the people say, is neither here nor there.
It's really unexplainable, the stress. And we're stuck. That's just the truth. We are in a fix. We can't buy, we can't get money. Everything is just like shut down.
A bank ATM used to be a POS operator's best friend, but not for Princess.
Waiting the happen for cash now is getting so worse. Like me, I don't use bank because bank have already done a lot of things. They don't do many things. So when this thing come, is even now me I go even talk say you affect pass because no be person will get ATM now go withdraw money. There's no money everywhere.
Some people sleep here. It's because of boundary. That's why I come and kill since 6:30. I never shop since now.
The scarcity of the 500 Naira, 200 Naira, and 1,000 Naira newly redesigned notes is biting hard on Nigerians, and they are feeling the pinch. Take, for instance, me, who took a shot at withdrawing money from my bank account over the counter because I couldn't get money through the ATM, and I got only 5,000 Naira, which is the stipulated amount that I can withdraw over the counter, and not just 5,000 Naira alone, but only in 50 Naira denominations. Now that's a microcosm of what's happening across the country, where people want to get their own money, but it simply isn't available. Reporting from Lagos, Olumide Macaulay, Channels Television News.
Let's now head for some business news. Here's Anne Wilder.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. The African Energy Chamber says that it plans to explore upstream and other opportunities in Nigeria and other African oil and gas producing countries this year. The executive chairman of the chamber, Ayuk, who made this known to journalists at the end of the Africa Energy Week in London, disclosed that the chamber facilitated the signing of oil and gas deals worth $2.5 billion last year. He also explains that the chamber will continue to campaign for increased investment and private sector participation and drive market liberalization of Africa's energy sector by hosting many investments in African energy sector dialogues and deal signings with UK and African policymakers, energy stakeholders, and investors. The headline Purchasing Managers Index of Nigeria's private sector fell to 53.5 in the month of January this year, coming from 54.6 in December last year. And that's according to figures coming from Foremost Financial Institution, Stanbic IBTC. Its latest survey shows that the rate of expansion in new business also softened, but it remained very sharp, again reflecting higher demand for customers. At the same time, Nigerian companies continued to secure greater volumes of new orders in the month of January, thereby extending the current sequence of expansion to 31 months, as the rate of growth was sharp but softer than in December. However, although business activities continued to increase at a marked pace at the start of this year, the rate of output growth softened to the weakest since August 2022. In quantity of purchases, activity increased for the 31st consecutive month in January, and there at the rate of expansion was also sharp and unchanged from that seen in the previous month. At the same time, the Stanbic IBTC PMI report shows that Nigerian companies increased their employment levels at a solid pace in the month of January, with the rate of job creation accelerating sharply to the most marked since June 2018. Well, that report also quotes that some had to raise their staff salary in order to help motivate them due to higher living costs, as inflation rate quickened to an 8-month high, while also they increased selling prices amid continuous sharp rise in input costs. Let's head to the equities market now, where it sustained the bullish momentum coming from yesterday. Investors' interest in some key bellwether stocks drove the third consecutive gain at the close of trade today. Will Ibong has the details.
Welcome to the stock market report. The NGX appears to be in la-la land as it notches 3 straight days of gains. And the index is up really strongly today by 0.49%, hitting the 29 trillion naira mark. And that's a strong one for the market. Today's performance was supported by gains in Seplat Energy. Its share price rose by 210 naira to close at 1,210 naira. That's a 10% rise in today's trading session. That's why we see the bullish uptick for the oil and gas index up over 3%. But today, we do have losers. As always, Guinness leading that pack as investors sold off the stock following the company's release of a weak half-year result, which is reflective of heightened cost pressures. And it was a sea of red on the activity chart. But 142 billion naira raised in value, that's a good one for the market. Will stocks keep bringing on the A game? We'll keep tracking the markets. And that's the stock market report. And Will Ibong is back to you.
Thank you, Will. Now let's take a look at closing figures of some major markets around the world for Wednesday. And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Millicent.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Anne. To some international news now. No classified documents were found during an FBI search of President Joe Biden's home in Rehoboth, Delaware. That's according to his lawyers. The statement by his attorney says the search was planned with the president's full support and that the search was carried out without advance public notice in the interests of operational security and integrity. Here's Teniola Oyetayo with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening from the Channel studio in London for your international news around the world in 5. Over 500,000 British workers have walked out over pay and working conditions in the largest coordinated strike action in more than a decade. They included teachers, university staff, civil servants, border agency staff, as well as train drivers and some bus workers. The mass walkouts across the country shocked schools, halted most rail services, and the military was put on standby to help with border checks. Unions want inflation matching pay rises, but the government says it's unaffordable.
People are fed up. I think people are just fed up with just being put upon so much more, and that you just get more and more pressure, more and more pressure, more and more things you've got to do, stretch your time, use up, the quality, work-life balance is being affected massively. There's massive burnout within professions. Should be happening.
The unions have been speaking to government for years and years, and for us to be here is a way of saying, well, our voices haven't been heard.
We need the government to hear us, and I think, by seeing the amount of people here today, they love their jobs, they're here for a reason.
Further strikes are planned next week when nurses and ambulance workers take another round of strike action over better wages and working conditions. In the latest scandal facing the British government, the opposition has called for the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, to be removed over bullying allegations. In Parliament, Labour Party leader Keir Starmer called on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to remove his deputy while an investigation into his behaviour is underway. The Labour leader accused Mr Sunak of being weak, while the Prime Minister insisted he was following due process.
I instructed a leading independent KC to conduct an investigation because I take action when these things happen.
How would he feel if one of his friends or relatives was being forced to work for a bully simply because the man at the top was too weak to do anything about it?
2 years after seizing power in a coup, Myanmar's military leaders have extended the country's state of emergency for another 6 months. It had previously said the country was facing unusual circumstances, prompting fresh doubt over its pledge to hold an election this year. The announcement of the extension came as streets emptied and shops closed across the country in protest on the anniversary of the coup. And the UK, US, Canada and Australia announced fresh sanctions against army-linked firms. Russia has said that any longer-range rockets included in an upcoming package of military aid from the United States to Ukraine would escalate the conflict but not change its course. The U.S. package of military aid, worth $2.2 billion, is reportedly expected to include longer-range rockets for the first time. Such rockets would allow Ukraine, which has said it plans to retake all of its territory by force, to strike deeper into Russian-held territory. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has welcomed a Russian company's offer of bounty payments for soldiers who destroy Western-made tanks on the battlefield, saying it would spur Moscow's forces to victory. Authorities in Western Australia say they have found a tiny radioactive capsule which went missing last month. A week-long search involving around 100 people was triggered when the object was lost while being transported. Authorities released a close-up picture of the pea-sized capsule, which could cause serious harm on the ground among tiny pebbles.
Locating this object was a monumental challenge. The search groups have quite literally found the needle in the haystack.
And finally, Pope Francis has celebrated one of his biggest masses with around 1 million attendees in the Democratic Republic of Congo's capital. Huge crowds started to gather in Kinshasa well before dawn. A public holiday was declared so as many people as possible could attend. Around half of the Democratic Republic of Congo's population is Catholic, the largest Catholic community in Africa. On the second day of the Pope's 4-day visit to the country, he also condemned what he described as the poison of greed, driving conflicts in Africa, and urged warring sides to forgive one another. The visit is the first by a Pope in more than 37 years. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Daniela. Welcome to Sports News. Chelsea have completed the signing of Argentina World Cup winner Enzo Fernandez from Portuguese side Benfica for a British record $131.46 million. The two clubs reached a deal over how Chelsea would pay the release fee for Fernandez, who has signed an 8.5-year contract. Fernandez was instrumental in Argentina's World Cup campaign in Qatar, capping off the tournament by bagging the Young Player of the Year award. Now, the Spanish La Liga has blasted the Premier League for cheating and doping after an analysis from financial firm Deloitte said clubs spent a record £815 million in the January transfer window. According to Deloitte, the biggest spenders were Chelsea, responsible for 37% of the total, equivalent to more than the combined spend by all clubs in the Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A and Ligue 1. Tottenham Hotspur have announced that manager Antonio Conte has undergone surgery to remove his gallbladder. Conte faces a spell away from the dugout after a medical assessment decided an operation was needed to ease severe abdominal pain. Well, co-hosts Australia and New Zealand have asked FIFA to urgently clarify reports that Saudi Arabia's tourism authority is to be named as an official sponsor of the 2023 Women's World Cup. A deal with Visit Saudi is set to be announced and has already been criticized by human rights groups. The Gulf Kingdom has been accused of human rights abuses. A Kobe Bryant game-worn jersey is expected to set a record when it hits the auction block at Sotheby's from February 2nd to the 9th. Bryant wore the jersey 25 times during his 2007-2008 season and was named MVP that year. Bram Wachter, the vice president of Sotheby's, says the lucky winner will also receive a vast collection, memorabilia and photos of Kobe Bryant. And that's Sports News. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.
And the main news again, Governor of Kaduna State, Naira El-Rufai, today alleged that some persons within the presidency are working against the victory of the presidential candidate of the APC, Senator Bola Tinubu. The presidency, in a swift reaction, however, says it is not aware of anyone working against the APC flag bearer. The Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who gave the presidency's position, however, assures that President Buhari is committed to ensuring a level playing ground for all candidates. Also today, the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar asked the central bank not to succumb to pressure from those he describes as anti-democratic elements to extend the deadline for the withdrawal of old Naira notes from circulation. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.